A year ago this week, we learned from an article in the Boston Globe that the single biggest contractor for the U.S. government in the Iraq War isn't paying U.S. taxes. The company is called KBR. They used to be part of Halliburton. And while Vice President Dick Cheney was the head of Halliburton, they finished moving their operations officially to the Cayman Islands, known for its stingrays, its red-footed boobies, and its facilitation of the anti-patriotic impulses of American companies who want to avoid paying Medicare and Social Security taxes by pretending like they operate out of a post office box in the notorious tax shelter that is the Cayman Islands. Under the Bush administration, military contracting increased to levels never seen before. KBR has enjoyed a multi-billion-dollar contract to provide support services to U.S. troops in Iraq. They've got contracts worth 8 times as much as any other contractor. And the problem is not just that it is short-sighted and dangerous for the U.S. military to give up the logistical capacity to sustain itself, so it needs private companies to go to war or to stay there from now on. It's not just that KBR headquartered itself in the Cayman Islands to avoid paying U.S. taxes. It's also that KBR is alleged to have been criminally negligent in its work in Iraq. The company is defending itself in 2 lawsuits from the families of U.S. servicemen killed in Iraq, electrocuted due to faulty wiring where they lived and worked. The House Oversight Committee released a list of a total of 19 suspected electrocution deaths among U.S. service members and contractors in Iraq. Army inspectors say in one 2-year period they looked at, American personnel were electrically shocked on average every 3 days. KBR also happens to be the largest U.S. contractor in Afghanistan, too. And now, U.S. troop numbers are rising there, and electricians who are former KBR employees say that the shoddy and dangerous work that KBR is accused of in Iraq continues today in Afghanistan. Check out this picture. This is a picture taken in Iraq in a trailer used for housing. This is running water from a faucet in a bathroom. And that little doohickey with the probe sticking into the running water, do you see that? That's a voltage meter. As you can see, it reads 180.6. The water coming out of that tap is charged to over 180 volts. If you stick a fork in an outlet in your house, that's about 120 volts. That water over 180. Joining us now is the woman who provided us with that picture. It dates to her 2 years in Iraq serving as a journeyman electrician for KBR in the Green Zone. Debbie Crawford, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First, could you just tell me the context of that picture that we just showed? What was that a picture of, and where was that taken?
I believe that picture was sent to me from Taji, was sent to me from an electrician there. He was basically, they had gotten some complaints of the occupant of that building being shocked in her bathroom. And the electrician showed up and started doing some checking and checking voltage measurements, and that water was reading 180 volts to ground.
I know that you are an experienced electrician. You've worked all over the world. Is that kind of error, that kind of electrical error, easy to make? Is that commonly made, or is that something that you would only do if you really had no idea what you were doing?
Clearly, that's an error. Yeah, no, you don't do that. I haven't seen that anywhere but in Iraq.
When you were working in Iraq, did you ever hear about people being electrically shocked in their showers or in their living quarters at their workplace?
Yeah, there was quite a few complaints about soldiers or civilians, other subcontractors being shocked in their trailer units, yes.
What did you find as an employee of KBR with so much electrical experience? What did you find about the way they just approached their work overall, how they supervised it, whether the people who they had doing the work were qualified to do it?
Not everyone, no. KBR does have some very qualified people working for them in their crafts and, other departments, but the majority of the work is done actually by third country nationals or Philippine, Bosnian, Iraqis, and they may be very good electricians in their own country, but they are not up to the standard of the American licensed electrician.
Was it at least? Sorry, go ahead.
The American electricians, for the most part, supervise third country national workers.
In terms of supervision for electrical work, was everybody who was working as a foreman or as an electrical supervisor qualified to do that work?
No, they weren't. My foreman was not even an electrician, my supervisor.
And would he weigh in? I'm assuming it was would he weigh in on how electrical work should be done, even though he wasn't qualified to know how to do it?
Yes, him and I exchanged words on several occasions about how work was to be done in accordance with the National Electrical Code, and safety was also a big issue with me.
When you spoke up, when you had those words with your supervisor, did you feel like the company was willing to hear your complaints, willing to make improvements?
No, they were not. It was very much, if you don't like it, you can go home. You're in Iraq. It's a war zone. OSHA doesn't apply here. If you don't like it now, you should have been here a year ago. It was worse. So it was a put up or shut up. And if people who pushed the issue and made a lot of noise were threatened to be transferred to other more hostile work environments where combat was a little bit more active, or they were sent home.
KBR says that its contract in Iraq never required it to fix potential hazards. So even when their own audits turned up the risk of electrical shock, even when electrical shocks were reported to them, they say that they weren't required to fix them. As a former KBR employee, what do you think of that argument?
That is just ridiculous. Electrical shock is not a potential hazard. Electrical shock is an indication that something is not functioning correctly. So that's the most basic of maintenance. It's an indication for an electrician that we need to stop what we're doing and fix something is wrong, something is broken. That's a ridiculous argument.
Debbie, one of the reasons that I wanted to speak with you today is because we're starting to hear from other KBR whistleblowers that KBR is repeating its dangerous electrical work in Afghanistan. We've still got well over 100,000 troops in Iraq. We're upscaling the numbers in Afghanistan. Have you seen anything? Are you in touch with anybody else through the company, your former employees, anybody else that would make you think that the company is systematically getting better about this?
No, I get comments on a regular basis on my blog from current and former electricians in Iraq and Afghanistan. Some things are getting better. The licensing requirements for electricians have become more stringent, but KBR is still not stepping up. They're only doing what needs to be done, and when push comes to shove, a lot of times, they'd rather just sign up on the paperwork than actually do the work correctly.
Former KBR employee, journeyman electrician Debbie Crawford, thank you for telling your story publicly. Thanks for testifying to Congress, and thanks for taking time tonight to be with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.